Episode of Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. This is the place where you're entitled to Brad's opinion. And now for your host, Brad Allard.
Well, hello, wonderful Burleson land and all surrounding areas. How y'all doing today? Today I'm going to be asking rhetorical questions, so to speak, about what I would ask a candidate if they were sitting across the table from me. And sometimes it might just be generic candidates. In other words, what would I ask anybody that was running for state office or local office? But I do have specific questions I would ask to specific. Oops, turn down the sound. I keep doing that. How long have I been doing this?
This is
For
episode 257,
and I
258.
still forget to turn the sound down on my phone. But anyway, what would I ask if Greg Abbott or Beto O'Rourke are sitting across the table from me? But also, what would generic candidate what would I ask them to answer? Now, here's the thing about my show in politics. That's I've had political candidates on before, and that's all well and good, and it's great, and I love it. Right now, I would issue an invitation to any political candidate for any political office that wants to come on the show. But there are two big caveats I would absolutely apply. One is I'm not having QAnon on the show or anybody whose policies are so far to the left or to the right that I can't possibly acknowledge them as legitimate. Now, they don't have to be. I'm talking about Democrat and Republican, liberal and conservative candidates. If you want to be part of the show, contact me and we'll discuss it. Okay. I'm not going to be solely a show for Republicans or Democrats. I'll be for both. And so I hope I'm making that explicitly clear that one does not have to be a Republican, even though I'm known to be fairly conservative. If you're a Democrat candidate for office, and you are within, shall we say, a typical Democrat mindset, not some left-wing whack job, then yeah, you'll have a seat. Second caveat is, though, I'm going to ask you some hard questions, both sides. All right. I'm going to ask you questions that people would want to know. It's not going to be a polish up the candidate show. It's going to be legitimate questions. But again, I issue this out there. If you're running in a primary or for an office, please contact me and let's see what we can do. And again, this is open to both sides of the political spectrum. But I am going to use my judgment as to whether I want you to be part of the show or not. I'm not going to let Mr. Allard's Neighborhood be a platform for something that I can't possibly support or know that most people can't possibly support. But I hope to hear from both sides. I really do. That makes for great shows. Wouldn't you say, Taylor? How are you doing today, Taylor?
I'm sorry, you're muted. I would agree. I think
You
it'd
would
make for a
agree?
great show.
Yeah, it would. I'd like to have candidates on from both sides of the argument, but um, we're not going to turn into some show that supports weird conspiracy theories or hostile political views.
Yeah.
So that's not going to happen. But anyway, I tell you who doesn't have hostile political views or weird conspiracy theories is that's our sponsors.
Yes.
Yeah, so you like the way I segued into that?
Perfect.
Yes, I thought that was nice. Anyway, thank you, Daniel CrossFit Burleson, 317 Southwest Wilshire. Check out the webpage for the protocols and the membership plans and the times of operation, et cetera, et cetera. They're open right now. Good time to work out, particularly if it's going to be cold weather coming up. If you'd like to do like outdoor walks and whatnot, you may need an indoor facility to work out in. So CrossFit Burleson will be the perfect place for that. Thank you to Shandy Stogsdill and the Stogsdill Realty Group. She's doing pretty well. I know she has a couple of closings coming up, and she's going to be on the show probably at the end of the month. They talk about rates in real estate. I like to have her on at least once a quarter because it's very informative. A lot of people tell me that they find that show pretty useful. And also, if you're looking to buy in and around this area, she's definitely the one to know. So thank you to Shandy, and she's going to help us talk about rates along with her husband Ron to help out with that, hopefully. Also, thank you to Rex Russell, myfinancialbox.com at the Russell Wealth Group. Check out the video, get to know him, get to know what he's about. Retirement plans, 401ks, IRAs, all the letters in the alphabet he can help you with. I'm going to have him on probably within 4 or 5 weeks as well to talk about the taxes in the situations that are boiling around Washington and down in Austin about taxes, and also about why the stock market has been so hyperactive the last couple of weeks. things of that nature. So Rex will be on the show within about. I'm trying to plan my February, early March shows in advance. So not just because I can promote them, but because it helps with their schedules as well. Also, Kimmy Etheridge over at Optavia, 817-789-1622. If you're looking for a weight maintenance and lifestyle plan, she's the one to talk to. She can help you not just take the weight off, but keep it off with healthy living. So Optavia at 817-789-1622. And Gayla Moore's. It's Valentine's coming up pretty soon. If you want to get some jewelry repaired, you want to get it designed, you want to get it cleaned for your sweetheart, or you want to buy something for your sweetheart, Gayla can hook you up with all of that at the fine Jewelry and Gemstones of Southern Gem over the top floor of the Windmiller Building in the Standard. So, who would I talk to first? Let's talk to Greg Abbott, shall we? I I don't have the angst, shall we say, about Greg Abbott that a lot of Democrats and or Republicans have. Has he been a good governor, or why not? One of the things I teach in my Texas government class is that the governor of the state of Texas, by design, by constitutional edict, is not going to be a powerful figure. This was written in the Constitution during the Reconstruction era, or right after it, and we did not want a dictatorial governor as we saw during Reconstruction. So the power of the governor basically is one of persuasion and public relations. And yeah, he has a role, of course, in the legislative process, but not anything like the president does in the national level. Okay. We don't really work on the governor's agenda. It's really Dan Patrick and Dade Phelan, the House Speaker's agenda. Okay, that's the agenda they work on, and the governor plays somewhat of a side role, but he does have influence on how how much the policy will contain, how far it will go, whatever else, and he does have the veto power. And that's probably his most substantial power, is the power to veto things. Even after the legislative session's over, he could still veto things up to 20 days after the session's over, which is something that the president doesn't have. Anyway, what I would ask him is this, though. One of the main things that's going to be asked of him in the campaign by his opponents is, how do we prevent what happened last February from ever happening again? That famous Snowmageddon, the Snowopolis, whatever it goes by various names. We know what I'm talking about. But have there been any real concrete steps to prevent this from happening again? I don't really know if they are. I know they say or that we're making progress. We've improved this, improved that. I want to know in a concrete fashion, what have you done to protect the power grid? As most of y'all have become very aware, we have our own power grid for the majority part of this state, the vast part of it. I think the only part that's not part of the grid is the very far top of the Panhandle and El Paso. And how have we prepared ourselves from such an event again? Now they say it's a 1 in 100 year event. Well, they also talk about climate change. Okay. And I'm not going to get into all that, but I'm just saying that the climate change uh, needs to be a factor in what we're thinking about, because we could debate of how much man is responsible for the climate change, how much the industrial output is responsible, and on and on and on. I'm not getting into that part of it, but there's no question that we are not prepared for the extremes of weather that been dealing with in the last few years. Extreme heat, or what happened last February. What has the governor in the state of Texas done to prevent these kind of blackouts, these rolling blackouts that had people's homes dark for almost a week? Beto's going on a campaign called, turn the lights on or something like that in the next couple of weeks, as if he's going to have a plan for it. But I don't know what that plan is. I want to know what Greg Abbott's done about it. Second of all, just what can you do about border security? I mean, you could talk about it a lot, but what can you actually physically, tangibly do about border security? The courts and the national government have all claimed responsibility for the national borders. They say it's a federal issue. And you've had states like Texas and Arizona sue the federal government because of their lack of dealing with the border issues. I know Abbott has sent the Texas Guard down there, and they've sent DPS and whatever else. But what, in a concrete fashion, can Texas as a state legally and appropriately take care of the border situation? For me personally, I want more secure borders, much more secure borders, but I also want that handled in an appropriate and humane fashion. Okay. And I do not buy into all this business that they had tried to show you a few months ago about Texas border agents whipping illegal immigrants. I think that was propaganda against the Texas government and against the state of Texas itself. I think that the people that were raising Cain about that had no idea, or really maybe they did have an idea, but they were using that as an example of Texas brutality, and I totally reject that. But Mr. Governor, what are you going to do about it? What can you legally do about it? What can you do without having to deal with an obstructionist federal government? The federal government has failed utterly on border security. That we have shipments of illegal immigrants all over this country in dark of night plane flights going all over the country, unpublicized, unnoted, whatnot, and the mainstream media is pretty much ignoring it. But they're flying these illegals all over the country. That's not a policy. But what can Texas do about that? Thirdly, the last legislature spent a lot of time focusing on critical race theory in schools. Now, I've talked about this at length about how critical race theory as a theory is not a beneficial. It is actually a harmful philosophy. But the idea that one need to balance out critical views on slavery with positive views on slavery is ridiculous. And that's kind of where some of the schools were led to believe was going on, even though the writers of the bill said, "Oh, no, that's not what it was intended. That's what it says on the black and white." And so the idea that if I spend an hour talking about the horrors of slavery, I need to spend an hour talking about how good the slaves had it or some bull like that. So they spent a lot of time on critical race theory to make sure that wouldn't be taught in the schools. Yet there are other issues that really need to be dealt with education-wise. And on that note, on Thursday, I'm gonna talk about education-related issues. Jordan DeWald asked me some questions, great questions as always. I really appreciate what she does for the show. But, I didn't really have as much time to prepare for that as I'd like to, so I'm gonna do it Thursday. Um, and I'm always kinda reluctant to talk about education problems specifically because I don't want people to just assume I'm pointing out BISD, my former employer, because some of the problems that exist in the state really are not a problem in BISD, and some problems BISD has uh, just as much as anybody else. And anybody objectively that works there would tell you that. But um, I don't want to use my show as a rant opportunity to you know settle old scores or any of that crap like that. But I'd like to talk about it objectively. But so we'll do that Thursday about education issues. So tell your friends. But anyway, I'd ask. We have significant issues. You know, how are we going to continue to educate students that don't have online capabilities? Particularly in this COVID era. How are we doing it with the limited funding that's provided for schools? Do you believe that local districts should have the ability to ask for or mandate masks? Do you believe that we really have independent school districts when we have a state down in Austin? The state government down in Austin is dictating so many things to the school boards of this state. I could tell you right now, I haven't had a school board member on in a while, and I got I got a couple of offers out there, and they've said yes if they can fit it in their schedule. But they'll tell you one of the biggest impediments is the state of Texas, not really so much, local issues, but state of Texas with all their mandates. Okay, and that's gonna be part of Thursday's shows as well, is the incredible number of mandates that the state of Texas puts on local school districts. And what are you gonna do about that, Governor? Are you gonna relieve or add to that burden of mandates? That's what I would ask the governor right now. And as far as his opponent, Beto O'Rourke, seriously? That's the first question I ask. Seriously? Is this your platform? Is this your platform? You're gonna take away AR-15s by your own quote that's gonna be hammered on you in every ad that they run in the next 6 to 8 months, or how long it takes to the election day, 10 months. Are you really gonna take away people's guns, their AR-15s on down? Um, the thing about AR-15s and other, related assault rifles is that there are so many different variations of that. I don't know how they would implement that law or that mandate. And what are they gonna do? Gonna come down and knock down the door and get one's gun? Good luck with that. But that's exactly what he said he'd do when he was running for the Democrat nomination for president. He's going to run on that platform. He's going to run a pro-choice platform. Now, in Texas, you look at the polls, most people oppose abortion on demand. A majority do. I mean, it's not a huge majority, but a majority of Texans oppose abortion on demand. A plurality support emergency abortion, shall we say? Forced pregnancies, if you will, rape and incest, in other words. Um, but the majority of Texans do not want abortion on demand, and the majority support variations of the law that we have currently being fought in the courts about the heartbeat bill. Majority support what Mississippi is doing, and he's going to run on a pro-choice platform. Okay, also open borders. He said during the campaign he would want to have a more open border policy. He stood right on the border of Mexico and El Paso, where he's from, and said he would like to, eliminate a lot of these camps and whatever else that Trump supposedly was setting up, and allow the people into the United States to be processed in a much larger fashion. So that's not going to work in Texas, and that's not going to win you the Hispanic vote. Uh, One thing I feel pretty confident is going to happen in the next November election is you're going to see a large number of Hispanics vote Republican. This is already happening down on the border counties. For the first time ever in 2020, three of the border counties voted for Donald Trump more than they did the Democrat candidate Biden. For the first time ever, McAllen has a Republican mayor. So you're talking about a generational political switch going on, and a lot of it's fueled by the border issues. And he's going to run on open borders. You're going to run on a pro-critical race theory that you need to be teaching more race content in everything you do. The real problem with critical race theory isn't social studies as much, but that's part of it. The real problem with critical race theory also is that it applies to how you teach math, science, English, etc. It's not just, you're going to talk more about civil rights, or you're going to entertain ideas about the role race has played in our history, in your history or government classes. It's also going to be how you teach math, how you teach English, science, health, PE, whatever you want to talk about. And so you have that to deal with. And also, are you going to mandate vaccines, which he said he would in this state? So the platform that Beto O'Rourke could not be, if I were a Republican operative, I couldn't create a more losing platform than the one Beto O'Rourke is going to run on: anti-gun, pro-choice, pro-CRT, pro-open borders, pro-vaccine mandate. Right now, the polls show Abbott anywhere from 8 to 11 points up. If he doesn't win by 17 or 18 points, I'll be surprised. It's going to be in Texas anyway. I'm not going to just predict boldly across the United States, but in Texas, it's going to be a Democrat wipeout, in part because of O'Rourke, in part because of Biden's numbers are terrible. They talk about the gerrymandering. Well, gerrymandering also helped a couple of Democrat incumbents as well, like the one that's just north of me here, District 33. The redrawing helped Mark Vesey out quite a bit. District 30, where Eddie Bernice Johnson over in South Dallas and Irving is retiring, was redrawn to make it even more strongly Democrat. So, it's not just a one-sided story about gerrymandering helping the Republicans. But anyway, I'm getting off the track. So I'd ask Beto O'Rourke, how do you expect to win with this kind of platform? How do you expect to win in a national scene or climate the way things are, where Biden's numbers are horrendously bad, and the generic ballot is favoring the Republicans by the largest margin since they've been measuring this thing? How do you expect to win on this kind of platform? And if you modify your platform, would that be a politically hypocritical move on your part? I'd also ask Don Huffines, who's running in the primary against Abbott, how in the world are you going to eliminate property tax? I see it on the signs right outside of town, in fact. I see it on Facebook ads: eliminate the property tax. How in the world are you going to make up the revenue? Strictly on a retail type tax like sales tax? I can't think of anything more regressive and anti-poor than raising the sales taxes. Of all the taxes we apply in this state and any other state, the sales tax hurts the poor the most. Because if I go and buy a product and somebody with less income buys a product, that proportion that he's paying or she's paying in taxes is greater to her or him than it is to me. And so, yeah, if I go and I want to buy something and I have to spend another $5 on a product because of the higher sales tax, I'll be irritated. But for some people, it might make the difference between buying it or not, going without. And the only way you could do the sales tax is do what some other states do, and it's put sales tax on groceries. That'd be horrendous. I can't think of anything that's more anti-poor than putting grocery taxes on it or taxes on groceries. So I don't know what Don Hoffman thinks is going to happen with eliminating the property taxes. Second of all, he's talking about deport all illegal aliens. I don't even know if we have the authority under federal law to do that. How does he propose to do that? Now, I don't expect Don Huffines to be Abbott in the primaries. At best, they'll get into a runoff because you have to win 50% in the Democrat and or Republican primaries to get the nomination. But I don't expect Huffines to do that. And they have a couple other candidates I've never heard of before. I see the sign on I-20, Candy Horn. I have no idea who that is. And as far as Alan West, I haven't heard much from him lately. And he may pull some of the more conservative votes, but I don't see him. I don't see him doing much, to tell you the truth. But anyway, the point is, I'd ask Huffines, are you going to replace this property tax with something that's more humane than what you're considering? I'm really kind of incensed by it in a sense because Texas is a hard state to be poor in. We are a low tax, low service state, and that's we voted for that, and that's is what it is. But we don't need to make it harder. I'm thinking of some of my Hill College students, single mothers, etc. And they're trying to get their education, whatever else, and the last thing they need is be paying higher sales taxes. And they said, "Well, if you don't have property taxes, they'll have more money to spend." Not no. Most of these people, a lot of them, the poor rent. They don't own, and so whatever savings and property taxes will come about will go to the landlords, not to the to the clients, whatever. Mr. Nichols says, "I like things under Abbott personally." Uh, that's certainly a legitimate view. I don't have a real problem with Greg Abbott. He says he's coming in late, and I'll repeat what I said. I'm not. I know some Republicans that are a bit more grind their teeth a little bit more about Greg Abbott. I'm not really one of those people. I'm not. I'm not an anti Greg Abbott person at all. But I would ask him these questions. How, if he goes for his third term, how would he address these issues? So, Ben, I appreciate you coming in. Maybe if you have time later, you can go back to the beginning of the show and you see what the questions I would ask. But we've had a lot worse governors than Greg Abbott. I'll put it that way. In my lifetime, the worst of my lifetime is Bill Clements, without question. Oh, he was awful, just awful. But that's another story. I would ask Ken Paxton just how long he's going to keep kicking his indictment trial down the road. His indictment for security fraud, rather. How long is he keep indicting the trial for security fraud down the road? He's been under indictment for 5 years as our attorney general. And Ben also says, I'm not going to nitpick even if I disagree on some things. I don't want to nitpick either because that really wears me out when I see this in the public discussions. Like, well, the economy's doing great, but, you look at or something like that, you see the New York Times or Washington Post, the great howevers they put in their headlines. Jobs, economy doing the best ever, but some experts say whatever, blah, blah, blah. I'm not a big Ken Paxton fan at all. I think it's incredible. We have a attorney general that's responsible for enforcing the laws of the state and representing us in court has been under indictment for 5 years for securities fraud, and he's been elected twice while under indictment. And he may be elected again. I mean, I look at some of the contenders that are running for attorney general. Louis Gohmert, are you serious? For those of you who don't live in East Texas, you probably don't know who Louis Gohmert is, but he's a goober out of East Texas. He's considered one of the worst congressmen in the United States Congress. He is just. I sometimes I've seen him, and I'm amazed that he has a functional degree from a university, and but he keeps getting reelected. But Louis Gohmert is what candidate. Another one, I've seen her ads, Eva Guzman. Uh, I already like what she's been saying already. Um, Another candidate for Attorney General is George P. Bush, Prescott Bush. This is Jeb's son. He was the land commissioner, and now he's going to run for Attorney General in the primaries. So you're going to have four. And right now the polls show Paxton ahead. Guzman, the one I like the most, is fourth. And I've seen her ads. She's, she wants to strictly enforce the border, and she talks about her life as a child of immigrants, legal immigrants, and whatnot. I think it's an interesting ad. But I would ask Paxton just how long we're going to keep kicking this trial down the road. I find it amazing that Attorney General has been indicted, and about 4 months ago, I want to say 3 months ago, several members of staff wrote a collective letter criticizing that very fact. And they said that he was using the office to help protect himself from his indictment and from his securities fraud trial. So he had several of his closest staff members all resign in a group. And they wrote, again, a collective letter. I think it was published in the Austin papers. And then they later went around the other newspaper cycle saying that Paxton was using his office to protect himself politically. And so, if the people that work most closely with them are making these claims, I think they're claims that need to be looked into. Okay, as far as other national members of Congress, the thing I would ask any of them is just how far are you going to go to be pro or anti Donald Trump? When does it come to the point where you're actually not representing the will of your district as a whole, but the far fringes of your district if you're constantly pro or constantly anti-Trump? I look at these districts here and the way the primaries are done, and they're only chosen by the most partisan of Democrats or Republicans. When does it get to the point when you say, look, I either don't like Trump, I do like Trump, but this is not good for the country, it's not good for my district? When do you start voting as a member of your district as opposed to a member of some pro or anti-Trump team? And I would address that directly to Roger Williams, who represents me. I would address that directly to Mark Vesey, who represents the district just north of us, or same with Kay Granger, or some of the Dallas representatives that are Democrats. When does it get to the point where you don't reflexively just vote pro or against strictly because you're a Democrat or Republican? When do you start placing the priorities of your district over your loyalties or your animosity towards Donald Trump? It's to me, the fact that we are voting in Congress now almost 100% along party lines is not a healthy sign for democracy at all. In theory, you would like the members of the House of Representatives in particular to represent their districts and the views of their district. And that means their entire district, not just the fringe on left or the right that put them in office in the first place. The idea that because I represent this district, my first loyalty to Donald Trump is abhorrent to me. Right? To me, it's not just a bad idea. I hate it because the people of this district need representation, not Donald Trump. Same thing, I'd say with the Democrat district. The people in your district need representation. They don't need you to grandstand about January 6th or other things that don't directly affect your constituents. One of my biggest criticisms is that both sides, the Democrats and Republicans, have forsaken the idea of constituent representation in terms of either being pro or anti-Trump or pro or anti-Pelosi. There are Democrats that are going to lose their office, deservedly so, in November because they chose Nancy Pelosi over their own districts. If the Democrats get wiped out in a wave in November in the House, which is possible, I'm not going to feel sorry for them when I over because they chose Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden over their own constituents' wishes. And just like in in 2018 when the Republicans got smoked in many cases is because the Republicans in this district did not get the representation they wanted. They were so locked in this death grip battle with the other side that they were getting ignored. So my biggest question to any generic congressional candidate is, are you going to represent this district or your party? And they're not one and the same. Okay, let's go with the second round of the ads, if you will. Our Place Restaurant. Thank you, Otto. Thanks for everything you've done. I appreciate you helping me through my COVID period there. It was a lot of fun, but you made it a little bit more bearable, certainly. You're a good man, and I appreciate what you do, and I appreciate your expertise in whiskey. And so I hope things are going well. It's on the highway, and it's on somebody just popped in. I don't know who this Russian or Ukrainian website thing is, but they keep popping in some. I'm not going to click on that. No, thank you. Anyway, thank you, Otto, at Our Place on the highway in Allsbury. Been there since 1986. Good food, good people, good times. Speaking of good whiskey, Wild Cigar. Want to have a big Super Bowl party. I was just texting with Chris about an hour before the show, and they're putting the details together. So I'll have more details on it, but there will be a big get together at the Wild Cigar and Culture on Super Bowl Sunday. And that's going to be a lot of fun. Taylor, it says something went wrong trying to reload the page. You still there?
I'm here.
Okay, I just
We're
got
still
a.
good.
You're still good. Okay, I just got a quick message. But anyway, it's back to normal. Back to Chris, though. More importantly, cigar and culture. Plus, it's Valentine's Day coming up, like I mentioned with Gala. And there's a lot of probably some of you lady listeners, or maybe some of you men would like to buy cigars as a gift for dad, for your friend, your brother, your husband, your boyfriend, whatever. Go buy the humidor. If you only have a few minutes, go buy that. That's a really nice humidor. So go pick you up a handful of cigars or a box or a gift card, and you can give the gift of cigars to your favorite, some of your favorite men in your life. Or if the women smoke cigars, good for them too. Buy some, but I go buy his humidor at the Wild Cigar and pick up some cigars as a Valentine's gift, because we talk about Valentine's strictly as men giving gifts to women. I think that's sexist. Dadgummit. Men like gifts too. So go by and get some cigars and/or a gift card. Make your plans for Super Bowl Sunday. Also, Antonio. I'm going to have Antonio on the show pretty soon too. He has a really interesting story. Antonio Basalo, Proactive Payment Solutions, proactivepaymentsolution.com will talk to you about how you can get your point of sales operations up. If you don't have one, he'll create one for you. They'll get you the best rates. You can save some of your money because it can be expensive trying to use point of sales and all the fees they charge. And so they'll find you the best rates going. So thank you, Antonio. Thank you, Payne, over at Payne Beagles with Beagles Technology Solutions. He'll help you make your home a smart home, anywhere from some minor adjustments to a full-on remake. Particularly, we were talking about this last week, or texting, I guess is a better way to put it. And if you're a home builder, or you're building a home yourself, or you're looking to build a home, it's a whole lot easier to put this kind of technology in the very get-go. So if you're looking to build, talk to Payne about what you can do to create a smart home. But if existing home, he can make sure you have what you need there as well. So check out beaglestech.com or call at 817-944-3572. Very fine young man. Both he and Antonio set you right up. Also, Tiffany Griffin, you should this week be getting your Local Life magazine. She's pretty busy these days. This is the first week of the month is always a busy time because they're putting the final touches on it and they're sending it out, and it goes out to 30,000 homes. So when you advertise with Texas Life or Local Life magazine, I'm sorry, I'll get it right. Local Life magazine at locallifetx.com or in the printed edition, you're going to get it sent to 30,000 homes to over 110,000 people. And she's expanding her mailing list. Right now it covers mostly Crowley and Burleson. It's going to be moving into Joshua very soon. So if you're looking to advertise, she's a great one to do with. And also, lastly, Live 365 Burleson Radio, playing your hits right now, your voice, your station. And so if you like to go back to time, we don't do a lot of modern stuff. We do a lot of stuff from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. And I think you'd enjoy it. So Live 365 Burleson Radio. Okay. Let's talk about local stuff as well. What would I do locally? Generic candidates. let's say at the state and local level. What are you gonna do about school funding? Our school funding system is a mess. It is a very, very complex system, and it does not distribute the money equally or even adequately or even equitably. Okay. Some school districts have the ability to fund themselves better than others. That's obvious. But the thing about it is, you have a lot of school districts that are getting more funding than others strictly not because of need, but because of fortunate geographic location, like they were on the Barnett Shale, for example, and they got more funding because they increased their property values and things like that. Or you have something like increased funding for in schools, not based on student needs or student population growth, but on other factors. That's some big plant happen to locate itself within the school district, like that new Tesla plant or whatnot. Our funding system is very, very inadequate, and it's not equitable. And it doesn't have to be everybody gets the same amount, because some school districts need more. Some districts deal with more than others. The major urban districts deal with some problems that maybe Highland Park doesn't have to deal with, or South Lake, or even Burleson have to deal with as much anyway. Do we need more money in BISD? Absolutely, but I can tell you that there are districts there are others than ours that are strained to the capacity. Second of all is that people, when it comes to school funding, people get really um, bent about school funding because what they see is money not being spent the way they think it should be, and that's something I'm gonna talk about on Thursday is educational funding and sometimes these other issues, but, that's what I'd ask a local candidate, say somebody's running for, state office here, state rep, Texas Senate, whatnot. Also, about the border issues again. To me, the border issues in Texas is one of the most critical issues we must deal with, period, because we're the ones that are facing the brunt of this influx of immigrants. And again, I say this always with a caveat that we need not dehumanize these people or treat them atrociously, but it is a major problem. It is crowding our public facilities of hospitals and schools. It is, uh, allowing certain people that don't need to be in this state into this state, There is, regardless of what the left will tell you, there is a criminal element to some degree infiltrating our state through this open border, okay? Now, it's not the majority of the immigrants, it's not even the large majority, or a large minority of them, rather, but it does happen. And people that deal with sex trafficking will tell you that I-35 is like a conduit to the rest of the country for taking young children and for nefarious purposes. Okay. Also, about the regressive tax structure. I mentioned this earlier. Our taxes really are hard on the poor. We need to do something. And the answer is not so much, in my opinion, it is more benefits, because that's just like putting a Band-Aid on the wound. We need to create a system in which those kind of policies won't even be necessary because the poor will have sufficient income to take care of their own business. Now, you're not gonna get rid of the poor, all right? The poor are gonna always be with us, as it says in scripture. But the point also is that if we created a tax structure that allowed them to keep more of their income, then and maybe the need for increased Medicaid, increased food stamps, increased of other types of public programs won't be quite as acute as they are right now. Also, certainly the rising crime rates in the cities. Austin is a poster child for this. What would you do about a community like Austin that cut their funding by a third for their police department, and now you have serious crimes like murder and assault rising rapidly in cities like Austin? How about Houston and Dallas, where the shoplifting rates are going through the roof? Why? Because the DAs in those communities are saying we're not going to prosecute any crimes under a certain dollar amount. So basically, they're given and I think in Dallas County it's $750. They're not even going to prosecute, and so basically they're given a $750 gift card to any place you want to go to. What you see in San Francisco and New York and Chicago, where you just have massive looting in the main business thoroughfares of those communities, is heading our way, and it's already here to some degree. It may not be quite as obvious or as prevalent as like you see on the news in San Francisco, but it's happening. because we have DAs similar to one that just got elected in New York that said we're only going to prosecute certain crimes and then we're going to look to alternative treatment besides incarcerations. Well, okay, are these alternative methods of dealing with crime going to be effective or not? And it's not the expense of it, but our shop owners need to have protection against basically an open looting policy that's happening in Austin and Houston right now. Dallas, I don't hear about it as much. I don't hear about it as much in Fort Worth. And I think I hear one reason don't hear about it in Fort Worth is a lot of these shop owners have taken matters into their own hands. And you know what I'm saying. I think some people understand in Fort Worth that if you go shoplifting there, you might get a more of a forceful response. And is this what we really want in our society, or do we want law enforcement? Do we want to go back to the Wild West, or do we want to have law enforcement? Do we want to go to a vigilante system or law enforcement? The idea of defunding the police is ludicrous and dangerous. And people say, well, what about this cop, that cop, these others that are on trial or this? Okay, every profession is going to have a bad apple, 2 or 3, but by far, the vast majority of the police force are good men and women busting their hump to protect us. By far. And I can tell you from what I've talked to several of my police friends over the years, and the thing they hate more than anything else is a bad cop, even more than we do, because it makes their job so much harder. But anyway, I want to just say that that's what I'd ask. What are you going to do about the rising crime rates? I particularly, if I have a Democrat candidate in office, I'd like to say, do you agree with some of these policies that are going on in Austin? But there you are. At the county and city and school level, the number one issue always is tax rates, property taxes. What are you going to try to do to keep property taxes from going out of control? My property tax rates are going up. I'm not criticizing or complaining about that. That's life when you have a system like we do and we're in a growing area like we are and the property values are going up significantly. Yeah, property taxes are going to be part of it. But there needs to be some sort of mechanism. And, the only one I know of, and I'm not an expert in property tax law because it's very arcane, but I do know that they freeze taxes after you turn 65, which gives me a reason to look forward, but I won't be 65 for another 5.5 years. But property taxes are a big one I'd ask a school board candidate or city council candidate or mayor or county level candidate. Now, we don't have any city elections this year, which we could all use the break, certainly. And as far as the tenure of our current mayor, it's been rather smooth or uneventful, and I'm glad for that. Glad for him. Has he done a good job? From what I can tell, from my end, Chris Fletcher has done a good job. All right, and my opinion of Chris Fletcher is that as mayor, well, as a person, I think he's a very fine man. But as a mayor, I've grown to see his. It's been a relatively smooth administration. Now, he may not say that, from the inside, but from what I'm viewing, it seems things are going okay, and I appreciate that, Mr. Mayor. Um, but anyway, I got off track a little bit. But what I would ask him, or ask anybody else, is what about property tax issues and expansion issues and infrastructure issues? What would ask a school board candidate? What about some of the crowded classrooms? What about the fact, are we adequately staffed in the right places? We may have a lot of people working in administration, but do we have enough in the classroom? Do we have enough security in the schools? Things of that nature. That's what I would ask. Um, is again, if we're kind of backtrack a little bit to the mayor, I would ask him also um, about the infrastructure issues, and just how much the city of Burleson can deal with that. Because as we know, our main drag, Wilshire, is a state highway, so there really isn't much we can do about it right now. But on and on and on. And I'd like to have the mayor on the show, but he's pretty busy these days, I assume. Um, but again, thank you for a drama-free administration, as far as I can tell. Um, Lastly, and here's what I would ask you as the voter: just how important are these issues to you? How important are these issues to you? It's one thing to sit around and bellyache on Facebook, or grumble with your friend on the phone or whatever else. But I would ask, how important are these to you? Are they important for you? Important enough for you to be registered to go out and vote in the primaries coming up on March 2nd? Is it important enough for you to find out what these people stand for? if you're a Republican, find out what the non-incumbents have to say. Find out what Eva Guzman has to say in the Attorney General race. Find out what uh, I don't know, Don Huffines, whom I'm not going to vote for, but if you won't consider it, then find out what he has to say, and you may like it. I don't know. Find out what your local member of Congress is going to say in the next time he or she is elected. Find out what their policies are. So if it's important to you, it'll be important to them. I promise you. So make it important to them. Participate. I'm going to preach on that for the next month. Be there. Vote for the candidate of your choice or the party of your choice, but make your voice heard. And that's all I have to say about that. This show will be on YouTube, which I think is slowly gaining traction. I kind of like that. I hope we, if you Facebook is not really your thing, I hope YouTube is. Also, this will be on the podcast by this time tomorrow. The other podcast from yesterday should be up or is about to be up.
It is up.
It is up. Rock and roll. So if you want to find out what wise droppings came from my brains yesterday, it's up on the Apple and Spotify. All right, so let's thank our sponsors. CrossFit Burleson, www.crossfitburleson.com is what you would need to be clicking to find out the rates and the protocols. Thank you, Daniel, for your sponsorship and support. Thank you, Shandy. I know you got some closings coming up, and that's great. I like to think at least a small piece of that had to do with your sponsorship here. Makes my ego better. Transactions into relationships, and that's definitely true. She can help you with the whole process and help you with the rates with her husband, Ron, too. Also, Rex at the Russell Wealth Group, myfinancialbox.com. Hit the link. Find out about him. Good man. We've been in this area a long, long time. Burleson High School graduate, Baylor graduate, of course. You know he's of quality. So there you are, myfinancialbox.com. Hit the link. Thank you, Kimmy. She's a Texas Tech fan, but I forgive her. Okay. I forgive her, but because she's so darn sweet. 817-789-1622. Optavia. If you're looking to maintain a healthy lifestyle, she can help you with that. Also, Gayla Moore. She's an Aggie, but I forgive her too. Since she's a Baptist like me, I have to. But Southern Gym, Valentine's coming up, guys. Get some jewelry repaired or cleaned or bought, and she's the lady that can help you with that. She really does know her stuff, and a lot of the B&I people that she and Kimi and I belong to just love her work. So Southern Gym over on the third floor of the Windmiller building off the Hidden Creek. Get it right, stupid. Also, thank you, Otto. Thank you for our place. Thank you just having an our place in our town because it's a good place to meet and it's a good place to eat, and appreciate everything you do for us. Thank you to Chris. I look forward to your Super Bowl party. I definitely will make a stop by that because that's going to be a lot of fun. Wild Cigar and Culture. Also, again, it's Valentine's Day, so something for the man and or woman who smokes cigars. Gift cards, which you can apply for either cigars or for drinks or whatnot. Go by the humidor, grab a few cigars for that special someone or your good buddy, anyone. Also, thank you, Antonio, Proactive Payment Solutions. We're going to have a show with him pretty soon. We're trying to work out a good Saturday to do it because he works for a living. So we're going to try to work that out. So proactivepayments.solution.com will help you with your point of sales operations. He'll help you with the rates, get the best rates possible, help set up a system. And speaking of setting up systems, you want a smart home, talk to Payne. He's the man. Payne Beagles at Beagles Technology Solutions at www.beaglestech.com or at 817-944-3572. He's ready and waiting by the phone right now. Also, Tiffany, we're going to work out a time to have her on very soon because her latest issue's coming out. LocalLifeTX.com is the website. The magazine should be in your mailbox by the weekend. And it's got lots of good ads, not just ads, but also specials and deals and coupons and whatnot. It's Valentine's related. And so check it out. And lastly, I'll probably have a special Valentine's show coming up, love music or something like that. How would you like that, Taylor?
Yes.
You like Barry White?
Sure.
Sure. Who doesn't like Barry White? So
Yeah.
Live 365, check out the radio. Okay. Thursday, I'll be probably back here in the library here, talk about educational issues. If you have questions and or concerns, be great. Share this with your friends. Look at it on YouTube, and we'll see you on Thursday.